a lot of information about different models of assessing penetration. You have packing, which is founded by a German company, and it looks at how many players you would pass through and how many points you would get for a pass. You have initiatives, which is the model that Tim Lees and Michael Beale speak about on the Inspire presentations, that comes from Pep and Linders, which is the same idea. You receive an initiative by receiving the ball between lines behind or out wide between lines. And what we talk about at our club is we've got some metaphors, if you were, to encourage conceptual models. And one of them is the engine. So playing into your engine. Now I've shown the opposition here. The opposition are 4-1-4-1. I haven't put our team on. So our team might play 4-4-2 diamond. They might play 4-3-3 with point down, point up in midfield. The idea is that if you were in the space highlighted here, you are in the engine. Can we play into the engine? Can the 9 drop off and join the engine? Does the winger come inside and join the engine? Does the centre-back step in and join the engine? Can you just play into the midfield and get the engine turned? It's a really key indicator that encourages our playing style to look a certain way. If you can't play through the engine because they're too compact, then you would play around the outside, and there's a lot of work done on different movements and shapes on the outside, different passing patterns. There's also coaching the idea of underlaps, overlaps, runs wide, get into an outside position, and then what do you do? If the fullback steps to you on one side, the other fullback can't step on the other side immediately. There's a lot of work done on trying to penetrate around the outsides. Remember, there's 2 outsides, not 1. So what I mean by that is there will be ways of considering penetrating on the outside and incorporating switching into that way of playing as well. And then the last one, if the team are too compact horizontally and vertically, then they're likely to leave space in behind. In this particular example anyway, they've left space in behind. Now, I just want to be careful with what I mean by that. A lot of people would incorporate playing in behind into their models to try and win, but a considered way of using playing in behind is to encourage the movement before the pass, would be one component. So a striker or a winger making his movement in behind before the pass is played. And there's certain various trigger points for that movement. You may look at where that passing behind's come from. If it's come from a 10 playing a through ball, if it's come from a fullback clipping the ball in behind, a centre-back playing the ball over the top to a striker making a diagonal run, whatever it might be. There are considered ways to incorporate playing in behind into a youth development model. So looking at these 3 moments we spoke about there, these 3 concepts, so through the engine, outside and in behind, we'd have different metaphors for those as well, which we won't go into detail here, but playing through the engine would be our primary, playing around the outside second, and playing in behind would be our third choice if they've responded in a certain way defensively that leads to us being able to afford those responses. And it's important, I know I've separated them here and I've talked about each one separately, that they are not separate, they all work together. So we'll take the Chile-Switzerland game from 2010 World Cup as our case study here, and in this game Switzerland had a man sent off. They played 4-4-1. They sat right on the edge of their own box. They have tall centre-backs. Chile were trying to go around the outsides, but not getting any success because the crossing was going to smaller players and Switzerland were winning the headers. They couldn't go through the middle because they blocked off the middle, and they couldn't get in behind because there was no space in behind because of how deep they were sitting. So Bielsa subbed off a player from the engine who moved a midfielder out, and actually, I think he moved a defender out, but he changed his shape so he played a left winger, a left midfielder, and a left back. So he changed from a back 3 to a back 4 system. And in this moment, he's played 3 down the outside on the left. On the right, he had a right back overlapping quite heavily, and the right winger, Sanchez at the time, would go in and try and run in behind quite a lot. Now, what this did was we were going, and as I said earlier, not to consider the 2 outsides in isolation. The Chile side was going from left outside through the engine for a switch of play to the right outside. And what, if you think about the difficulties now compared to before. Before, Switzerland were able to shift and deal with a 1v1, not let them cross, but if they crossed, win the header, shift. But now you're dealing with 3 on the outside, and you're able to get into a much better assist position, maybe for a cutback. So you're going to have to shift further over to the right. And now when they shift over to the left, you have to shift over again. So now you're creating gaps through the middle to be able to penetrate. And it's a really interesting case study. And I've spoken about it in previous presentations. It's included in my Bielsa book. But the important thing to take from that case study is that you shouldn't separate these models completely. They have to be considered cohesively. And a coach needs to be able to watch, and players need to be able to make decisions based on how the opposition's responded collectively.